Hello, students. Today we're going to take a look at Module 1D.3. Now, this says Chapter 11, Section 2, but this is in fact Module 1D.3. American Power Tips the Balance. In the last module, you took a look at how the United States got drawn into the war, a little bit of background about how the war started and what happened in Europe, and then how the United States couldn't really avoid not starting or not getting involved in World War I. So now you're going to look at how we prepare to fight and how we help the Allies win. This is an abbreviated World War I lesson because we were largely focusing on how World War I affected the United States. So as you read, you're going to think about this web diagram and take notes. And we're thinking about problems faced by the U.S., but you want to wait until we're done reading together to come back and write out the problems. So I'm going to go ahead and read this to you and then hit pause to answer the questions. American military mobilization. How did the U.S. prepare for war? The United States first needed to build up its armed forces. When war was declared, only about 200,000 men were in service. To solve this problem, Congress passed the Selective Service Act. It required men to register with the government so that some of them could be selected for military service. This process, called the draft, quickly put about 3 million men in uniform. Women were not drafted. The Army would not let them join. But the Navy accepted women in non-combat positions. Women served as nurses, secretaries, and telephone operators. Many African Americans served in the military. They were placed in separate units, usually under the leadership of white officers. But some blacks were trained as officers. Blacks were among the first to receive the French military honor of the Croix de Guerre. So, how did the United States build up its armed forces? They passed the Selective Service Act, or this is also called the draft. American success in combat. How did the United States help? First, the United States needed to get its troops to Europe. It began to build ships. The government also took over ships built for other purposes. The United States also needed to reduce the loss of ships to submarine attacks. The United States and Britain began to use the convoy system. In this system, merchant ships traveled in a large group guarded by naval vessels. At first, American soldiers served as replacements for men killed or wounded in Allied armies. Then Americans fought as an independent force. One of America's greatest war heroes, Alvin York, fought the Germans in France. When the war came, York had wanted to be excused from the draft. He was a conscientious objector. That is, a person who opposes war on moral grounds. The draft board denied his request to be excused. York served with great personal bravery. He was promoted to sergeant and became a popular celebrity in the United States. So, how did the United States help the Allies? At first, American soldiers helped replace men who were killed and wounded in Allied armies from France and from England. Fighting over there, what new weapons were used? New weapons made the fighting in World War I very destructive. One such weapon was a German cannon that could fire a shell 75 miles. Another was the Zeppelin, a gas-filled airship that Germans used to drop bombs on English cities. Machine guns were also introduced, and the first large-scale use of poison gas took place in April 1915. The two most innovative weapons were tanks and airplanes. Fighting with these weapons was called mechanized warfare. Such warfare depended on machines powered by gasoline and diesel engines. One hero in air combat was Eddie Rickenbacker. He fought in 134 air battles and shot down 26 enemy planes. Conditions in the trenches were miserable. Soldiers got many diseases and medical treatments were limited. So, name two weapons used in the war. Any two will do. We have the most innovative were tank and airplane, but you can also say the German cannon, the Zeppelin, and also poison gas. The collapse of Germany. Why did Germany surrender? German morale was very low. German sailors and soldiers began to give up. The German leader, the Kaiser, left his throne. The Germans had been worn down. On November 11th, 1918, Germany agreed to a ceasefire that ended the war. The other countries in the Central Powers had already surrendered. The toll of the war was massive. It had lasted 4 years and taken 26 million lives. So, why did Germany surrender? First, morale was low. Second, the Kaiser left the throne, so there was no longer a German leader at the helm of the war. Let's take a look at the skill builder. This says World War I casualties. Casualties are lives lost in the war. You can see Russia had 9.3 million, Germany 7.2 million, France 6.2 million, Austria-Hungary 4.6 million, Great Britain 3.4 million, and the United States had a mere 325,000. So which nation suffered the most casualties? Which one is the largest number? And you write that here. How does the chart reflect America's late entry into the war? So, the United States, these countries, Russia, Germany, France, Austria Hungary, and Great Britain, were all fighting for years before the United States entered the war. Okay, so what do you notice between the numbers of casualties for those countries that were in the war longer and the number of casualties for the United States? Now you will go to your Quizlet for 1D4, 1D3, and you will practice your Quizlet and then take the exit ticket for this module.